everyone, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you today from the kitchen of the Grow Together Homestead, where I'm doing a little bit of preserving, and today with one of my favorite methods, fermenting. I love fermenting as a preserving method because it not only is it delicious, but it also has a lot of really healthy bacteria in it that is really essential to somebody like me, because I'm a celiac and I really like having that healthy flora in my gut, and I would much rather build that flora up by eating some delicious healthy sauerkraut than by taking tablets. Also, food costs are through the roof right now, so this is one of the things that I do to try to sort of help make the budget go a little bit further, because even in these winter months when I'm not growing something, if I notice some sales on in a store somewhere on a particular vegetable, I'm likely to take that home and try to do a preserving project with it. And fermenting is seriously one of the easiest ways. There's lots of videos available on my channel about different fermenting projects, but I really want to get started on this coleslaw today. A lot of us have grandmothers and great grandmothers who used to make tons of coleslaw, and they would prepare it in these wonderful crocks and keep it in their cold storage room. I don't have a cold storage room or a lot of room in my fridge, so I particularly enjoy this canning project because it's how to make coleslaw out of a single head of cabbage. So I'm not making tons and tons and tons. I'm preparing enough coleslaw to ferment in one of these 2 liters / 2 quarts approximately canning jars. Okay, what I like to do is I'm wearing the gloves because that's just recently been sterilized, and it's also been keeping warm in my oven. That's an essential part of this whole fermenting process. You want to make sure that everything that you're working with is extremely clean and sterilized. So my hands have been cleaned extremely well as well, because this is one of those projects where you're going to get right in there, okay, with your hands, and you're going to prepare this material with your hands. First off, cabbage. I'm using a green cabbage today. This is 3.5 pounds approximately. I found that for this size of canning jar, a 3 to 4 pound cabbage is about the size that you're looking for. This was on sale. I got it for a couple of bucks, and I'm going to make a whole lot of coleslaw with it. Okay, now what I'm going to do first though is I want to remove some of the outer leaves that aren't so great. I'm not going to toss these though. These are going to go into the bag of greens that I keep in my freezer to make stock with later. There's also a video about that if you're interested. Okay, but what I do want to do is make sure I've saved one of these big leaves that are on the outside as a little hack for later to help keep the ferment going process. Don't slice up one of these. I'm going to try this to make this as visible as possible here. I'm going to cut my cabbage in half. That's going to make it much easier to do the slicing that I need to do. Cut it in half. You want to remove this core here. Usually I do that almost as a little triangle. I take it out. I could also throw this in the stock bag, but I know that my chickens, half of it's going to my chickens and half of it's going to my rabbits, because they do love those fresh treats as well. So might as well use everything I can. I'm a big fan of the waste not, want not policy here at the homestead. Okay, I need to get a little bit more of the core out of this one. I didn't quite, I got sliced as nice as I could have. That does it. I also find that for myself, I find the slicing a little bit easier if I then cut it in again another quarter. So I've got 4 quarters. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to do sort of a fine shred on it. Now, you could run this through your food processor, and that would definitely be a faster way of doing this. But I sort of prefer a nice, almost chunky, see if I can get that better for you, a nice, almost chunky coleslaw. I don't like it to be super fine. I just find I like the body that I get if I don't do super fine. So what I've done for my purposes is I've got sort of this size. All right, you can go finer if you want. You can go chunkier if you want. Don't go too much chunkier though, because then you might find you'll have it a little difficulty when it comes later. I'm gonna start putting this in a bowl. I'll keep working at it. There we go again, more sliced cabbage. This really doesn't take that long to do. I also have to say that the flavor I get from homemade coleslaw is just so much better than anything that you can have store-bought. And I know it contains all that good bacteria. Some of the stuff in the stores has been heat processed, which would mean that it doesn't contain that good bacteria anymore. I was spoiled as a kid and had lots of relatives who prepared homemade coleslaw. So it's kind of hard to go back to store-bought once you've started eating it. And honestly, it's really fun to prepare and to see how it turns out every time and to share with your family and friends. You do want to use cabbage that's really nice and fresh as you can get. That's pretty much a general rule with any fermenting that you're gonna do. And actually pretty much a general for any preserving that you're gonna do anyways. You don't want to use the dregs, you really want to use the good stuff. You'll end up with a far better product that way in the end. Okay, so here we go. We have a really nice big bowl of cabbage here. There really is only one other ingredient that's absolutely essential to prepare homemade sauerkraut. I will show you a tweak or two that you can do to change the flavor or speed it up. But honestly, cabbage, you need that. And sea salt. This is what you need. You don't need to add anything else to start doing your own sauerkraut at your house. For a 3 to 4 pound cabbage, I find approximately 1 tablespoon of fine sea salt does the trick. This really isn't hard, guys. You're gonna sprinkle it on there. And now for the fun part. And you're gonna just start smashing that salt into the cabbage. That's gonna cause the fluids to come out. Okay, because we do want to have, it's a good workout too. It's kind of fun. This is gonna take, it really depends on the cabbage. It's different for different, depending on the freshness of your cabbage. But I usually find that I'm gonna be squeezing this for between 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes a little longer. Okay, so I'm gonna keep working at it. As you can see, I'm really just mashing my hands right in there. I'm squeezing and pushing, squeezing and pushing, squeezing and pushing. Yes, it is a workout. Yes, you do want to have strong hands to do this. So this might be a fun project to do with a couple, okay? You might want to take turns because it will take a little bit. And I'll be back in a second. So that what's happening is the salt that you're working into the cells of the cabbage here is causing it to release some of its fluids. It's starting to feel wetter and softer, and it's also starting to decrease a bit in volume. The membranes are breaking down a bit. If you find some larger pieces that you missed while you were cutting it up, sometimes that happens. You'll have a few little core pieces. You'll either want to remove those or sort of break them up a bit with your fingers while you're in there. Sometimes I punch it. Yeah, I told you, it's fun. While you're working it, you'll notice that the cabbage is sort of changing color a little already. Oh, and I forgot this little trick. If you have a little stool and you're not super tall, it's helpful to have that extra power and that extra height. Okay, so I'm standing on a stool right now so I can get a little bit more pressure on this cabbage. Okay, we're almost ready here. It's starting to really release its fluids. Sometimes I'm tempted when I'm finding cabbage isn't releasing its fluid quickly enough, I'm tempted to put more salt in. But when I've done that, it hasn't worked as well. It's better to just be patient and do the work. It's messy, but that's never bothered me. Those of you who follow me know that being messy is kind of my jam. It's definitely a hair tied back kind of job though. You know what I'm saying? All right, this is looking great. I'll show you. See? It's really reduced a lot, and there's lots of, it's very wet, all right? That's what we're looking for. Okay, you can get off the stool now. So this is just about ready to pack into the jar. Oh, I normally, when I'm canning with a lot of my pickling, I'd want to use tongs, sterilized tongs and stuff. But as I have been handling this with my hands already, I find that honestly, I'm just going to use my hands to pack it with the jar as well. The jar has been sterilized. Just took it out of the oven moment when I started the video, so it's still quite warm. So I'm gonna start popping this in. I'm gonna put it on a cutting board because I'm messy. I'm gonna make a mess. The best way to avoid that. Get in there. I also do have a pair of sterilized tongs and a sterilized wooden spoon and a little jamming spoon I'll show you. So this has been sterilized, and what I'm going to do is I'm pushing down, really jamming it in there. See, even with, there's all that fluid still left in the bottom even. I'm going to make sure that all gets in there. Now, a little tweak that you could have done. Some people like flavoring in their sauerkraut. I personally like it as plain can be because I just love sauerkraut, period. But a lot of people like to work a little bit of caraway seed into there in the end. You can do that if you want. One of the things I like to do, as you can see, this jar is nice and full. Okay, it's almost full. I could have gone with a slightly larger cabbage, but that's a pretty good size. You want to make sure that the fluids are right to the top. So you could jam this all down and make sure the fluids rise, and you could can this exactly as you have. Or you could try to speed up the process by using either some whey that you maybe have left over from a plain yogurt, a plain good quality yogurt. Or you can do what I do, which is always save fermenting liquids from previous ferments in the fridge. This, oh, it smells delicious. It already has that bacteria, a nice healthy bacteria in here from an earlier ferment. As I said, I kept it in the fridge. And I'm just gonna top this up. So a bit. That's both gonna make sure I have enough fluid, and it's also gonna jumpstart this ferment. Okay, it'll take a little less time to get going if I do use that ferment liquid. So my little tip here is if you are into the whole fermenting process and you've created something with a nice ferment, don't throw the liquid away. Keep it in the fridge. Keep it alive as a nice little bacteria jumpstart you can use. Almost the same way you would think of if you were making sourdough bread and you have a starter. Well, I keep ferment starters in a way in my fridge from earlier ferments. Okay, just a little waste not want not thing again. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure all of my little cabbage pieces are down in the fluid. And then you remember that cabbage leaf that I saved from the outside? I'm gonna put that on the top. That's gonna help keep all those little cabbage bits from floating to the top and being on the surface and possibly getting exposed to too much air and then maybe causing your ferment to go off. So some things that are essential with ferments, you want to make sure your materials are sterilized in advance. That's very, very helpful. You want to keep everything submerged under the fluids as much as possible. So I always use a cabbage leaf at the top. Another thing that has really changed my fermenting game, and those of you who've watched my videos know I'm a huge advocate of these wonderful weights and burping lids. Honestly, it's made fermenting so much easier. They fit nicely right on the top of either wide mouth or other size mason jars. And then you just leave this in a nice, cool, dark spot and allow Mother Nature to do its trick. What's going to be happening now is the healthy bacteria in here is going to be converting the sugars and into a nice acidic, safe base, all right? It's a really, really wonderful process. Please do read up more on fermenting, because honestly, once you start doing it, it does get a bit addictive because it's super, super fun and one of the easiest ways to preserve food. Hence, one of the reasons all our grandmothers used to do it, right? Before there was refrigeration. And it's tasty, it's good stuff. So I've got my jar here. As I said, I'm gonna go pop that in a cool, dark spot for a couple of weeks. I usually find for most of my sauerkraut, it's gonna go for 2 to 3 weeks before it's ready. I start testing the flavor with a sterilized spoon at the 2-week mark to see how it's going. You're gonna notice the color is gonna change dramatically. Okay, this is some that I made about 4 weeks ago. All right, and it's been in my fridge. And as you can see, there's a pretty significant color difference. All right, the already prepared sauerkraut has basically lost most of its color. That's okay, it's supposed to happen, all right? And it's delicious. I was gonna save a whole jar for when I did this video so that I could show you a comparison of 2 whole jars, but I couldn't help myself, and we've been eating this instead. But I saved a little to show you, see? Very, very tasty, and also good for your tummy. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you'll give it a try. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions in the comments. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of our little homestead goodies that we're doing around here. And it's not gonna be long before we start winter sowing here. If you're interested in winter sowing or any other sort of gardening stuff, please do stay tuned because the season's starting to amp up soon. And as always, I hope you'll take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.